They say bigger is better. They say everything is bigger in Texas. And now the best big man in the class of 2026, Arafan Diane, is heading to Houston.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who can't step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. Page makes first listen each and every day. And Locked On Coogs make us the number one sports podcast network, Locked On Podcast Network, that is in the world. If I'm joining the conversation and you don't know what to say, tell us whether or not you've ever had a pet guinea pig. As we're celebrating a big man from Guinea today in a bonus episode of Locked On Coogs on all things hoops, little hoopy hour kind of action here. Love this commitment. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, I should point out, which I also love. Just make sure you go show them some love. We got more fun on that later. Arafan Diane is a Houston Cougar. Houston also plays Ryder in basketball tonight, so we'll make sure we talk about that a little bit before we get out of here. Arafan, gigantic, 6'1", listed 290. If you told me he's 300, I'd believe it. Big, strong, 7'4" wingspan, and extremely gifted. Like, guys that big should not be that coordinated level gifted. Truthfully, a really powerful guy with a lot of finesse. He wants to rip the rim off. He wants to drop a triple-double with assists. He wants to lead the break. He wants to do all the things, right? He's really, really good. His junior season last year was his first year at a prep school. He'd been in Guinea for a while, and the recruiting story here is really fun, actually. So Casey Beard, who coaches the fives and does a lot of scouting and recruiting work for Sampson, was out watching Team USA's U18 team play Guinea, and Arafan Diane was actually playing up, right, as a 16-year-old playing with their U18 team, which is, I guess, not against the rules, but it is obviously playing up a division. And apparently, while watching Americans on the court, including Chris Cenac, Casey called Sampson. Was like, "Listen, man, this is the guy. Like, you gotta get this guy." Did not take long for Diane to end up at a prep school. Houston did as many legal visits with the kid as possible just to make sure they made an impression. They were infatuated with this kid from the start. He handles it well. He plays outside. He can create in the short roll kind of stuff. He can create from the mid post, create on this dunker spot area. He's an offense initiator that can also catch lobs, catch the drop step, catch the mic and spot, and rip the rim off. He's that kind of combination of power and finesse in a way that I'm telling you cannot be overstated. The flaw, because he's 18, they all have flaw. He just turned 18. Happy belated birthday, Arafan. The big flaw, and everyone has flaws, is that he needs to continue to work his way into college basketball big man shape. We're going to need him to play 30 plus minutes, right? What I think is interesting is a couple things. One, in talking about him, Sampson uses the word develop a lot. Sampson sees the high potential in this kid and knows it is potential, right? Pro potential there in Arafan Diane. When you see coaches reference developing a big man a lot, it's usually about the offensive side, working on their touch, working on their finesse. But when you watch Arafan play, you know that ain't it, right? So the staff's on the same page there. Diane's on the same page there. That's all clear. But I think what sticks out the most to me as a fan of Arafan Diane is this guy's not running from work at all. We mentioned in Guinea, he played up. He played against the top competition, Team USA. Let me eat their lunch. And he did. And he did. Someone says, well, you got to play against this competition more often. He goes to Iowa prep. Listen, I've never been to Guinea. I guess technically never been to Iowa. I can tell you right now, there's prep schools in Florida. There's prep schools in California. There's prep schools in the Northeast. I'd go to all of them before I went to Iowa. But he went to Iowa to go put in the work. He put in the work, right? He then is getting offers from all these places, one and done options, all that kind of stuff. He sits down, identifies what he need to get better at. X, Y, Z, playing perimeter defense, conditioning, playing 35 minutes a night, all that kind of stuff, right? What program's going to help him the most with that? The Houston Cougars, right? The Houston Cougars is exactly the program to work with that on work with him on that, I should say, and that's an incredible pairing. But it's not a pairing that many teenage kids, again, the kid just turned 18, volunteer for, right? Much like I was impressed with Chris Cenac, Kingston Flemings, Isaiah Harwell in this cycle, much like I was impressed with Jarris Walker in his cycle. Having guys with 5-star talent commit to the work, commit to programs that won't guarantee playing time, that do guarantee pushing and working them and coaching them hard and loving them up, but you got to break them down to build them back up, right? Like committing to a program that is open, blunt, and honest about doing those things tells me a lot about the kid. And it does every time, right? There's a reason Sampson will tell you to your face. He doesn't recruit every 5-star. He doesn't recruit every kid based on their talent. Now, there's some threshold of talent to get recruited, sure, right? But it is not just about let's find the most talented kid in the world. It's not about that. There's got to be kids that have the right crossover where the talent meets what Houston does. And this between the years piece, signing up for the work, that's a big part of it. And Sampson has found guys in that 5-star realm of talent that are committed to the work. And what's fascinating is they saw it work for Jarris, where he got the one, and he still went through it, took his lumps, got benched here, got benched there, but was clearly enough of a talent. Went one and done, went 8th overall. Like it all worked for him in that sense, right? And the pro thing, he got put in a backlog of forwards at Indiana, and I think he'll get a fresh start somewhere before the trade deadline, just because he needs more time on the floor. But that's neither here nor there, right? People are seeing, oh, that's possible there, right? Never mind the fact you've been to 2 Final Fours in 4 years, now championship game last year, all that kind of stuff too, right? That obviously gets you on a pretty big stage, right? And so what you're seeing is ultimately that Houston is looking out for those kinds of guys, and they found one in the best big in the world. And I literally mean the world, right? The best class of 2026 eligible big man in the world. I also think this tells you a couple things about Houston long term. It means that there's a lot of buzz around Chris Cenac going pro. Between JoJo and Chris and Arafan, I imagine that probably is the case. I would point out that I think Diane and Chris Cenac would actually pair very well together. I would mention that I think that either, as we're seeing with Chris, but I think Arafan would also pair very well with JoJo. I think all that works out a lot. I don't think that has to be the case, but in terms of a minute steal, I could see this being a thing where when Chris Cenac goes one and done as a top 5 pick in the whatever in 2026 draft, people are saying like, this was the sign. Sure, maybe it is. I'll worry about that later. I'm not worried about that right now. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Right. I would also point out that what may be the case too when that we were looking at some G League big man recently, and people were like, "Man, we lost it on that guy to BYU. We loved it," and I think they did love him. I think that guy could read the writing on the wall and say, like, "Look, I'm 22. I'm gonna go compete for minutes with an 18-year-old." That doesn't typically work out well if they're frankly as invested in the 18-year-old as Houston is. Houston wanted Diane when he was a 16-year-old and has been looking out for getting him to Houston as quickly as they could for a long time. And now it's done, and Diane's a Houston Cougar. And that's freaking awesome. It's gonna be so much fun to run a post-centric offense, guys. Like running stuff through him, man. Like Jarris could do some of this stuff. And Jarris was a very good perimeter guy for as big as he is. Jarris wasn't this big, right? This is a different kind of matchup problem for everyone they play. And this isn't like, oh, well, BYU's got Kiba Keita. No, this is different big. This is different big. This is different big. We're going to be all right. We'll do more as more games of his high school year happen. He's starting a senior year right now at Iowa United Prep, I should say, on the EYBL Scholastic Tour. It's a fun one to watch. I'd go watch him and check it out. I don't think Houston's done this week either on basketball recruit commits. So we'll be paying attention at Locked On Coogs. Find me on socials at Painswith512. But before we get focused on all of those kinds of things, Houston's got a basketball game to play. I want to talk about that in just 1 second. Before we get to that, though, this show is brought to you by everybody's over at FanDuel. Because if you're watching the NBA and you're a basketball fan, that's what we're talking about basketball right here, NBA is back, the Rockets are good, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for shots at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a $300 bonus bet when your first $5 bet hits. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today. Play a game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Programs Locked On Coogs here. And look, there's plenty of people in my social media mentions asking why Houston's even playing Ryder. And listen, I'm not sitting here telling you they're a bunch of world beaters. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to call this a trap game before Las Vegas Players Era Invitational or anything like that. Ryder is a MAC team, MAAC team, MAA2AC team, bottom at Kim Palm, and they play a very slow, methodical offense that doesn't shoot a lot of threes. It doesn't even mean a whole lot of assists, actually, in terms of assist percentage, meaning assists per field goals made. They're towards the bottom of the country in that with a very slow offense. They do have a couple really good scorers in Flash Burton, who is the point guard. He's active, aggressive, attacks the rim, both hands, usually off 2 feet. Pretty downhill present kind of guy. They try to space the floor to get him in a mismatch after screening a few times and get him downhill and those kind of things. I think coming into the year, the more popular name for them was a guy named Zion Cruz. Similar. If Flash is 6'3", Zion is 6'4". If it's 6'3.5", 6'4", they're about an inch apart, right? Cruz actually started his college career at DePaul, and I think it was a little bit more highly touted coming into the year. As I mentioned, he was the third-team all-conference preseason selection and all that, right? Also a downhill attacker. Also a guy that puts constant pressure on the rim. He plays more in the air than off of 2 feet, maybe, compared to Flash Burton, but Zion Cruz and Flash Burton, their shot chart would look fairly similar. It's both going to be a lot of things inside of 10 feet, which is an aggressive kind of shot chart for a guy that's listed at 6'3", 6'4", right? So that's who these guys are. They spend a lot of clock trying to get a mismatch and let one of those guys attack the rim and live with the results. They don't have dominant bigs. They do have, for the level they're playing at, pretty big bigs, right? And I think those guys are very, I don't want to say fundamentally sound in a derogatory way. I don't know if a different way to say what I would describe their game as, besides fundamentally sound, though, so that's what we're going to go with. There isn't a player on their team that can keep up with Chris one-on-one. There isn't a guy on the team fast enough to stay in front of Kingston Flemings. There isn't a guy on their team that, frankly, could guard Miles Usan one-on-one or bang down low at JoJo Tugler or anything like that, right? That's not what this game's about, though. I think with the size and length that they've got at Ryder, and then, frankly, with the struggles you've seen for Houston so far, you probably schedule this game, frankly, thinking, okay, you don't know what's going to happen at Auburn. You need some sort of a tune-up deal before going to Las Vegas. And you want something to help your guys in the summer when you're scheduling, in the offseason when you're scheduling. You want something to help get your guys let's get some rhythm going, right? And I think in the offseason, you probably thought there would be these talented freshmen. Okay, they just got beaten, battered, and bruised. Going to have a rough film session on Monday. Let's go give them some feel good before we head to Vegas, right? I think that is important. However, the freshmen were the only feel good that happened in Auburn. there was a lot of problems, a lot of everywhere else, and Houston won the game, so there's one obviously too many problems. But I do think though that while the part of the roster it affects is the inverse, um, the method is still the same. You had the Auburn game on Sunday, you won, and your freshman led the way, and you get to teach from a winning tape. There's a lot to teach from that game. Missing this tag on a roller, playing below the level on this instance, leaving this guy open on the backside because we rotated wrong, missing this cut on the offensive side, offensive issues all over the place, right? And just seeing the ball through the basket. We've shot the ball poorly thus far this year, right? Um, I think when you manage to schedule this game to get the freshmen right, it's kind of functionally turning into a game to kind of get the upperclassmen back on track, right? I bet it's not a bunch of Kingston Fleming's ISOs. I bet it's not a bunch of Chris Cenac ISOs. I bet Milos gets a few, and I bet JoJo gets a few, and I think they need it. I think that's part of this is the navigation of a season, right? Where like Milos gets to cover an aggressive attacking point guard without fouling, and an offense work the offense, get back into his rhythm. He finished as one of the best point guards in America last year. JoJo Tugler finished as a Defense Player of the Year candidate last year. Let's get these guys back where they were, and we're working back to that. And I think that this is a great opportunity for Houston to see that start. Um, now, I I think the spread is something stupid and all that. I'm gonna get into all that. I'm picking Houston. I think the more interesting thing for Houston is going to be who are we talking about in our 10-ish minute post game? Who's the star going to be? And I kind of think Milos is a big day. I think much like Kingston took over, and I called Kingston. Go back and check out the show I did with Zach previewing Houston Auburn. I called Kingston. I think Milos has a big game here. I think there'll be some moments where it feels like he and Flash Burton, the point guard at right, are playing more one on one, and they spread out and let it go. And I think that that's where Milos will shine because he's going to beat that guy, and it's going to feel like okay, this is what saw Milos do to Arizona last year, right? And Texas Tech, and getting those kind of feels back going into Vegas because they're going to need everybody in those Vegas games is important. We're breaking down here at Locked On Coogs afterwards for a few minutes. Make sure you check back on the channel, hit subscribe at the bell so you know when we go live. Locked On Coogs, primarily the Locked On Podcast Network. This is the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Go Coogs.